No. There's no way.
This is what happens when you don't finish what you started, boy.
Round 2. Fight!
So apparently I was the only person who thought last week's episode was fun because it was rated the lowest episode of the entire series. But I have a good guess that the last 15-20 minutes of this episode has made everyone forget about that episode because the war has officially begun. Welcome back, everybody. This is my breakdown of Invincible Season 4, Episode 5, aka Round 2. We watch as Nolan tries to apologize to those he hurt the most, including the woman he was married to for 20 years that he once called a pet. Meanwhile, Alan recruits the universe's version of Blue Beetle, and finally, ladies and gentlemen, we get round 2 of Mark vs. Conquest. We've got so much to discuss, so let's break it all down. Full spoilers ahead. We open this episode with a little moment of levity, which is much needed after what happens towards the end. We watch as Alan is showing Eve his one-eyed pet, as Eve asks Alan if Nolan has truly changed. It's a valid question considering the last time she saw Nolan, he was destroying half Chicago and almost killed his own son. Now in the sky, we see the conversation between father and son as Mark learns the truth about Nolan's first mission to Earth. We see Nolan has a genuine sense of urgency here as he explains to Mark why he is critical in this impending war against the Viltrumites. As we know, there's no time to get hung up on the past, it's now all about survival. Nolan admits his past mistakes, stating that his actions were wrong, and he promises Mark that he will spend the rest of his life trying to make up for the damages he's caused. Being on Earth, defending it alongside with his son is the starting point, his first step towards his continued redemption. Really with no other choice and seeing the gravity of the situation, Mark agrees to join the fight. With the future of the universe hanging in the balance, the recruitment process continues as Alan is tasked with a mission to search for Tech Jacket, who will undoubtedly be needed for this coming war. But speaking of war, for Nolan, his mission is far more personal, far more terrifying than battling any empire as he wants to talk to Debbie. Before we break down this scene, I just gotta say it now, I really appreciate the show giving us this moment between Debbie and Nolan as this man who can destroy planets within seconds, but now we see him trembling at the front door of his old house. The fear, the nervousness is all on his face and he can't even muster up the courage to ring the doorbell as he is starting to walk away consumed with his guilt, but then the door opens and it's Debbie. As she doesn't speak a word, she just leaves the door open, a silent invitation. Inside, Debbie remains silent, letting Nolan suffer through the silence, forcing him to confront everything. Now he tries to explain about how their life was built together and having Mark and how he always knew in the back of his mind that he had a duty to his people and the mission should have been easy, but it wasn't. Nolan admits that in his almost 1,000 years of existence, the 20 years he spent with Debbie made him realize that he wasn't a Viltrumite anymore. He was slowly but surely becoming more like a human. He apologizes not just for the big things like killing the Guardians and the devastation of Chicago, but for what he did to her and Mark and even Oliver. It's a raw and unfiltered admission of his guilt, but Debbie, she's heard enough. She can't help but to let out a little laugh as he talks about repairing his damages, as she repeats that not even his superpowers can fix the misery he's caused and the countless deaths. She asks him what he wants and what right does he have to be here, and she's completely justified in her actions. She even tells him to go F himself. Oliver's mom is brought up in a conversation and he tells her that he never loved Oliver's mom, he only loved Debbie and he misses her. And in a moment of kind of vulnerability, Debbie says that she misses him, the man she once loved, the man that he killed. But in a moment of anger and frustration, we see Debbie starts hitting him, and as she's hitting him, she accidentally kind of hurts herself in the process. Debbie even brings up the fact that he once called her a pet, which we remember from season 1 and one of the coldest, most depressing, craziest lines of this show, as her final words to him cut straight to his core.
If I was supposed to change you, I failed. You're not one of us. You're not human. You're barely a bad photocopy. You got to say what you wanted to say. Now get the f out of my house and never come back.
As he does leave and she drives off and we're left now sitting in a silence. Again, we got a lot to talk about towards the end, some great action, some great character moments, but this scene right here really stood out to me. It was devastating to watch Debbie, and it was also very powerful at the same time. Now, we've seen the remorseful side of Nolan these past couple seasons, but again, Debbie, in my opinion, was 100 correct in her response towards Nolan. She held her ground, she let her voice out, she let her pain out, she refused to let him and his desperate plea for forgiveness negate all of the damages that he's caused not only for their family, but for all the families he's affected, especially with the ones off-planet and on-planet. Again, to me, I just found this scene to be a really raw, honest portrayal of trauma and betrayal, and again, I appreciate how the show took this time to give us this important scene. Let me know what you all thought of this scene in the comments below. Did you feel bad for Nolan? Do you agree how Debbie treated the situation? Let's talk about it. Now we cut to the next morning where we find the Walking Dread wreaking havoc as Tech Jacket arrives to take him down. Now in the middle of this fight, we see Tech Jacket saves a civilian who calls her a man, but we see Tech Jacket removes their helmet to reveal himself as a woman by the name of Zoe, which is actually a change from the comics from Zach Thompson. To me, I've always viewed Tech Jacket's origin story to be one that's like a mix of Green Lantern and Blue Beetle. Basically, Zach in the comics came across a spaceship that crash landed on Earth, and inside was a dying Guardian who transferred the Tech Jacket suit to Zach. I would imagine the origins for this version of Tech Jacket is the same, as we see them defeating the Walking Dread as her father calls her back to home base to let her know that Alan wants to talk to her. Now in space, we see Alan explaining to her why she's needed in this war, and honestly, it doesn't take much to convince her, because as her dad says, she always chooses to do the right thing. Back home, Debbie is afraid of Mark leaving, but she knows that he must fight in this war, as he promises that he will come back alive after it's all said and done. Now Oliver comes home, and he's upset to learn that Nolan was there, but he didn't wait to see his own son. Mark wants Oliver to stay and protect Earth while he's gone, and Oliver isn't having it. He carries the weight of not being able to protect his mother on Thraxon, and he's not about to let that happen to Debbie on Earth, as Debbie agrees that he should go. Now, before they take off to protect Earth, Debbie wants one last thing from them as we cut to a happy family meal with the whole family there, including Paul, and unfortunately, this might be the last time that this family is together like this again. Meanwhile, looking for a pick-me-up from an old friend, we see Nolan pays Art a visit to talk over some beers like old times. Nolan asks about Paul, and Art tells him the truth that he isn't a powerful alien, but he's a good guy who takes care of Debbie and the kids. Nolan admits that he's happy that she's found someone, as Art calls it a night because he's got a busy day ahead of him. Now, before leaving, we see Nolan apologizing to Art, and he hopes that when he returns that Art can maybe make him a suit, but unfortunately, Art tells him the truth that he only dresses heroes. As Nolan flies off, you can see the relief in Art's face. He was genuinely terrified that Nolan was about to take him out. Again, I kind of feel bad for Nolan because we've seen the work he put in at the end of season 2 and obviously in season 3 and so far this season. But besides Mark, who saw him back in season 2, everyone else that last saw him, minus Oliver because he was a baby, but Art and Debbie, he was killing people. He was murdering people. He almost killed his own son. So again, very similar to Debbie's reaction towards Nolan. I kind of feel like Art did the same thing. Like, dude, I can't trust you. Now we see the goodbyes continue as we cut to Eve and Mark in bed, and they're talking about Rex and Amanda and them being stuck on another planet, but they still have hope that they'll return soon. Mark brings up that she had something important to say the other day before they were interrupted by their father and Alan, but she says that it wasn't important. Eve is deciding to keep her pregnancy a secret for now because it's clear she wants this war to be his main priority. As she looks at Mark and tells him not to die, and he promises that he won't. As Mark and Oliver head off to space on the mission, we see Oliver giving his mom a hug and Debbie giving them both a hug. They both say bye to Paul, and we see Mark says bye to Eve as they venture off into space. As they're now inside the spaceship, Nolan's first words to Oliver for the first time since he's seen him since a baby is not, "Hi son, I missed you," but instead he speaks his mind and he wants him to leave. Nolan claims that he wants to spare his son, and I do believe him, but Mark tells him that it was a family decision, but also it was Oliver's decision to be here. Now we see that Talia is still the captain of the ship, as back on Earth we see Cecil is watching them take off. You can practically feel the weight lifting off of his shoulders because for the first time in over 20 years, Earth is officially Viltrumite free. As Donald says, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, at the moment, it's a moment of relief for the planet, but for our heroes, it's just a calm before the storm. Now, their destination to the Coalition planet is going to be about 2 weeks, which is a perfect time for some training and some bonding. We see Oliver and Zoe getting to hang out together, but when it comes to his father Nolan, he's basically avoiding him. Now, as some more time passes by, out of nowhere, their engine is compromised. Talia has to make a quick decision as they immediately have to detach the back of the ship to save the main hull, but the problem is, Oliver and Nolan are still in the back. Now, before Mark can get them, the explosion happens and the ship is ripped apart and they're left behind. Now, Mark does find Oliver floating in space alive in the debris, but the relief is short-lived because the real trouble has arrived. We see 3 Viltrumites are waiting for them, as this is Lucan, who we haven't seen since Season 2's finale. We have a new Viltrumite, a powerhouse by the name of Bernard. And ladies and gentlemen, we have the one and only return of Conquest. Mark is shocked to see that he's still alive, as Conquest looks at Mark in the eyes and tells him that he should have finished the job when he had the chance. The fight breaks out immediately as Oliver tells him that they've killed him before and they'll do it again. Now, Alan is dealing with one Viltrumite with the help of Tech Jacket. Meanwhile, Oliver, I love Oliver so much, he flies head on to Conquest and gets smacked upside the head like he did in Season 3. As we see, Conquest remembers Oliver and he grabs him by the head and he's about to pop his head like a balloon like he almost did last season, but luckily Nolan flies in with a massive punch. And oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, my heart stopped because I was so excited for this moment. It's really brief and I wish it was longer. That's the only issue I have with this scene. I wish Omni-Man and Conquest had a longer fight, but we do get a brief battle between Omni-Man and Conquest, as Conquest is a fan of Nolan and his old work. He's excited to kill a legend, but Mark isn't letting his dad take all the action for himself. Mark jumps into the middle of the fight and Conquest starts taunting him about Eve and talking about your magic girlfriend and can't wait to taste her blood again. We know the mindset that Mark is in right now. He said at the end of Season 3, he will not let anyone threaten his family again. So him mentioning Eve, him almost killing his brother, he's already dealing with the guilt of killing someone in Episode 1. Mark is ready for that action this time around. From here on out, this is where the episode shifts. We can see that Mark is different now. He's not holding back and he's not trying to do the right thing anymore. He's just trying to end Conquest as quickly and as painfully as possible. We see the fight spills over to a nearby planet as Oliver holds his own again versus Lucan and the others are taking care of business while the Viltrumites have backup. Now, since this is Oliver's first time fighting in space, he needs to catch his breath on this planet. As he's doing that, Conquest comes out of nowhere and is about to land this death blow on him, but Mark luckily stops him in time. Meanwhile, Tech Jacket gets hit so hard in the helmet that they lose sight as Bernard is about to make their move and Alan saves her as Tech Jacket and Alan figure out a way to escape this attack. Now, back to the main fight, we see Mark choking Conquest with all of his strength. Despite taking massive blows to the body, Mark doesn't remove his hands from his neck and we can see Conquest's eyes getting blood red. In this scene, I was in love with the animation because it felt like the animation from the Season 3 finale. As we watch Conquest fighting for his literal life, he's desperately trying to get Mark off of him, but nothing is working as we've never seen Mark this locked in before. Conquest tries grabbing Mark's face, but Mark bites off his finger. As we can see, Conquest's face is now turning purple and his eyes are filled with blood at this point, as Mark is literally choking the hell out of him. Nearing death, Conquest pulls a classic Viltrumite move by slicing his hand through Mark's stomach, but Mark still chokes him as we see his insides are now being ripped out of him. This has to be the craziest and most determined we've ever seen Mark before. The man's guts is literally hanging out, but he still is choking Conquest. The brutality does not stop here as Conquest slowly starts ripping out Mark's guts, but eventually he stops because Mark chokes the life out of him. Now, Nolan and Oliver find them moments later. They find Mark is barely alive and his hands are all scribbled up from his efforts as his own intestines are literally laying on top of him and on Conquest's corpse. It is such a crazy image to see, and we got to talk about this fight again because I think while Season 3 was brutal, it was a longer fight. While the first fight between Mark and his dad was brutal and it was obviously more emotional, but the intensity, the determination, we've never seen Mark like this before, and him literally still choking Conquest with his guts hanging out is maybe one of the craziest things that we've seen on the show, at least in my opinion. That was fantastic. Again, I need to repeat that round one between these two in the season 3 finale was great. It was fantastic. Obviously, it was more deaths at hand. There was more stakes at hand. I'm still processing what went down in season 3, but I'm also still processing what might be, again, I think one of the most brutal scenes that we've seen in the show. And the idea of Mark sacrificing his own body to kill Conquest just is insane to watch. Our last scene shows Thetis telling Talia that she did the right thing and to ensuring the safety of the rest of her crew despite leaving the others behind, as he gives her the orders to head back home. Now, our post-credit scene for the week takes us back to the Viltrumite ship where they can't find Alan and Zoe. As we can see that they are hidden outside the ship, underneath the ship, in Zoe's suit, which is shielding them and holding them as a hideout as they await for the coalition to find them. But in the meantime, they don't have any idea where they're headed. Again, I know people weren't the biggest fans of episode 4, but how do you all feel now? Did this episode make up for that? From the beginning of Nolan's apology tour with Debbie and Art, I thought all that stuff was so well written and so well deserved to get the emotional weight of the situation, to getting a fun moment with Tech Jacket versus the Walking Dread and going up to space and meeting her dad, and all of that stuff was fantastic. But then to go into the second half of the episode with the Viltrumites fighting Nolan and Alan and obviously Mark and Oliver and Tech Jacket, it was so good. But then you add the cherry on top with the brutality of the round 2 of Conquest versus Invincible. I still can't get over how brutal that was. And, you know, RIP to Conquest again. I wish there was a longer fight between him and Omni-Man, but just the brutality, the visceral nature, the animalistic ways of marking that scene. Again, just the determination that he will not allow another Viltrumite or another villain to compromise himself or to threaten him or his family. And we saw that in the scene. This is a different market. We've never seen that before. And again, the intensity, the brutality, the violence of that fight. Shout out to Mark. And again, RIP to Conquest. With that being said, that will be the end of this week's breakdown of Invincible Season 4, Episode 5. We've got 3 episodes left, man, and I know it's only going to get crazier from here. There will probably be a time jump because I know in the comics Mark has to recover and we see him and his dad and Oliver kind of bonding while that's going on. But we probably will also maybe check in on what's going on Earth and what have you. But let me know what you all thought of this episode. What you think of the conversation between Debbie and Nolan and Art, Tech Jacket and the gender swapping. How do you all feel about that? I don't really care. I think the character's incredibly awesome. I don't care if it's a male or a female, but also let me know what you thought of round 2 between Conquest and Mark. Thank you all for watching or listening to this week's breakdown. If you're watching this on YouTube, I appreciate you. Do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the hype button, hit the share button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel today. If you are listening to this on podcasts, Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, follow the podcast, and I would love it if you can give me a 5-star review. Alrighty, y'all. I will see you again soon to talk about next week's episode of Invincible. In the meantime, don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next breakdown.